Program. Joining us now from the Pakistani capital is political analyst Javed Rana. Javed, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Umar.
Javed, let's start with the latest developments from the occupied Gaza Strip, because we know Israel now says that it has taken control of over 75% of Gaza City. Over 64,000 people have been killed in the occupied Gaza Strip, and Israel's not stopping there. What are the latest developments, Javed?
Well, I think we've been exhausted by hearing time and again from Donald Trump when he says that we are very close to a deal on Gaza. That did not happen in the past. I really doubt that it would happen so soon, so far as his new assertion is concerned on striking a deal with the Hamas. The problem is not Donald Trump. The problem is not Hamas. The problem is apartheid Israel. The kind of the fascist mindset that exists in Tel Aviv. Because previously, you may recall that the Hamas had accepted by and large, all the terms and conditions that Israel had laid down. And when when Hamas announced that it is accepting the proposal, which was brokered by Egypt and Qatar, then Israel set another goalpost. And they said, no, they want the release of all the hostages. And you know the track record. Previous deal were violated by Israel. And then obviously it is for me, it is very difficult to actually expect from the Donald Trump that he would be able to deliver, though he has the capacity to make it happen. But everybody knows that he's being blackmailed by Mossad on Epstein file, where there are his sex videos with the teenagers, and that is why he has not been very meaningful when he says that he will get it done. Now, again, bigger problem is Netanyahu. He is not listening to anyone. He is not listening to the Americans, because strings are being pulled in Washington by the Netanyahu. And that is a bigger problem. I really doubt that he will be able to make up to his promise that there would be a deal. Because for Netanyahu, killing the rest of the 20 prisoners of war is not a big deal. Israel has already killed these captives by actually bombarding, by undertaking a carpet bombing of different parts of Gaza from north to south, from the south. Now they have gone into the Gaza city. I think there are really doubts, but at the same time, addressing specific to your question, now going by all these media reports that now, though Hamas has been saying that they want the withdrawal of all Israeli troops from Gaza, but according to Al Jazeera, they are reporting that perhaps now they could possibly settle down, that if Israel stop bombing right now, by and large, they have already, I think, carpet bombed the major parts of the Gaza city. So again, we have to see how things unfold. But so far as the track record of the Donald Trump is concerned, that lacks a character of a political leader.
Tell me, do you think Hamas is going to accept this ceasefire deal? Hamas has said that it will accept the deal, but only if it complies with the terms that the Trump administration is going to provide. And one of the biggest, condition of the ceasefire is that Hamas will have to leave the occupied Gaza Strip. But doesn't that make sense? Because it absolutely does not make sense, because Hamas has said that it will not leave the occupied Gaza Strip. It has been in the area to defend the Palestinians since the very beginning.
Hamas is a part and parcel of Palestinian society. How can Hamas exit from Gaza or from the West Bank? It doesn't make sense. But again, Hamas, I think, has come up with a kind of arrangement which should be acceptable to apartheid Israel. And that arrangement is that it is willing to basically give in to the Palestinian coalition of different political parties, of different factions, and different experts from the different fields, and it would hand over power to them, but it would not exit from Gaza. There would not be any further exile to the Palestinian leaders belonging to Hamas. And that is, I think, a kind of a proposal which makes a lot of sense. And I think that is a kind of the condition which many European countries have also basically echoed. Basically, these are the talking point of Israel. And that is one of the hurdle. But I think right now, the proposal which Donald Trump has come up with, it looks like that Hamas, obviously, for very obvious reasons, they want some kind of a suspension of genocide, and therefore, I think Hamas would be probably willing to give more concession to Israel. But again, the bigger problem is that who's a grantor? It is a Donald Trump, who's known to be a bigger liar, and who's the one who's a part of this entire genocide campaign. His government has been providing all kind of weaponries. He himself has been threatening to the Palestinians that if they don't pick up arms against Hamas, they would be killed, they would be expelled. He's the one who's been eyeing on Gaza that there would be a kind of a beach settlements. There will be new settlements on the beach. Basically, his son-in-law is involved in the real estate business, and that is what is also part of a greater strategy along with Israel. So again, Hamas is not in a position to basically bring in between some other grantors. Qatar doesn't have that kind of influence and clout on Washington. Egypt is a part of the problem along with Saudi Arabia and Jordan. So I think these are the very tough conditions that Hamas has been undergoing, and it has been giving a lot of concessions. But my doubts persist because Netanyahu has a very stinky political and religious agenda, because of which I think it is hard to say that there would be a ceasefire agreement if the situation prevails as we see on the ground.
Javed, internationally, we're also seeing the Palestinian cause being represented highly by not the governments, but the public. We saw a massive protest in Brussels yesterday where people, they drew the line. They decided to tell the government that enough is enough. And now the Belgian government is also taking some actions. It has said that it will sanction the Israelis, and apart from that, it will stop giving them weapons. Tell me more about these protests, Javed, and also tell me about the recognition of Palestine at the UNGA, because Belgium is among several countries which has said that it will recognize the state of Palestine in a few days from now.
I think Spain has already recognized, and many other European countries have been threatening Israel that they are going to recognize state of Palestine in case there is no ceasefire agreement, in case there is no an end to the war. But again, they are coming up with the caveats, and they are saying that there has to be return of the captives. There has to be a kind of arrangement in Gaza where Hamas does not rule there any longer. But again, these are the things which have yet to take place. So again, I will see all these kind of statements coming from these European countries with a pinch of salt, because in case there is no return of these so-called, what they call as hostages, I would call them as a prisoner of war, then they obviously would withhold their decision. And in a similar fashion, I think the UK government has also had come up with the caveats. They're saying that they would recognize the state of the Palestine if there is no peace deal, at least the ceasefire agreement. But again, then they have also many other such conditionalities whereby they have a leverage whereby they may not recognize the state of Palestine. But again, the question that you raised, that's extremely important. There is a huge public resentment in Europe. There's a huge public resentment in the USA. That is becoming a bigger part of the problem for these Western countries. And now they have not been able to find grounds on the basis of which, from their perspective, because their perspective is a very genocidal perspective, they have not been able to find grounds where they can go for some kind of sanctions against Israel. And what are those grounds where they will be able to put sanctions on Israel? That is not yet known to anyone, because they are simply indicating, giving warning to the Israel. And that is where I think that is just aimed at cooling down public public resentment, rising public anger, and this is a problematic area because this is again very ambiguous kind of the policy posturing that European Union has been demonstrating. What will be the grounds? How many more people Israel need to kill when they will put sanctions on Israel? How many territories, how much a part of territories Israel need to further occupy when they would be in a position to impose sanctions? How many other countries need to be occupied by Israel when they would come up with imposing sanction? I think apart from the Turkey, no other European country has come up with any meaningful, tangible action so far as the suspending trade ties are concerned. These warnings means nothing unless they are put into action. And more importantly, why still there is a dual use export being provided by these European countries to Israel, which means that is still by and large many European countries are providing weapons, direct and indirect, to Israel, which is a lingering source of this genocide. It's not just US, it's not just UK. Many other European countries are providing all kind of intelligence. They are providing all kind of support to enable this genocide. Therefore, I think all that glitter is not gold. Much of what we are hearing from the European countries, that is just for the public consumption. But my understanding of the situation is that sooner or later there would be change of guard in the European countries, because there is a public demand that there has to be an end to this genocide, because people are watching these live stream scenes, something they never watched, and now people are becoming desensitized, at least in Asia, because I have not seen the kind of the protest in Asian countries, the way the Europeans are reacting to this situation.
Javed, we're talking about protests, right? At the same time, we can talk about how these protests have turned into action. Because if we talk about, in the past, we've seen humanitarian aid vessels like Hanzala, like Madlin. They went to Gaza to break the Israeli siege, but then they were attacked by Israel. Israel detained people who were on those boats. Now, the global Sumud Flotilla, which took off from Barcelona last week, is on its way to Gaza to break the siege. It has some of the same members that were on Madlin. And moreover, Javed, what's important here is that celebrities, influential figures are also joining the flotilla to go to Gaza to break the siege and to deliver humanitarian aid. Now, people on these missions, they have always said that we are not members of Hamas. We are not there to support Hamas. We're only going there to break the siege, to provide them with essential items, with humanitarian aid, with basic necessities. How are you looking at this flotilla, Javed? What sort of reaction could we expect from Israel?
I think, going by the track record, what Israel has been doing with these kind of aid ships in the past, it's not, by the way, it did not start off just after October 7, 2023. It has been happening for last over a 1.5 decades. From Turkey to other countries, there had been a similar situation, similar ships which have been trying to break the siege of Gaza. It has been happening since long. So again, this time around, it looks like that since this is a bigger one, since there are more celebrities there, since there are more and more people from the different parts of the world, that does suggest that Israel is going to come under a lot of pressure. Now, Israel has invested millions of dollars, and they have a secret agreement with the Google and other major platforms, whereby they are just making it sure two things, that is the target, that the pro-Palestinian narrative is somehow the other does not get much attention on the social media. And then the Israeli narrative, which revolves around lies and falsehood that there is no starvation in Gaza, which revolves around again a kind of a false narrative that there is no genocide in Gaza. I think despite the fact that they have made a huge investment on winning the public narrative, I think these kind of the public posturing by the international by the international human rights activists, I think makes a lot of sense. And particularly the timing is very important because Israel is now at the edge of taking over all parts of Gaza, or almost all parts of Gaza, at the expense of the Palestinians. So again, Israel, since losing one war, and that is a war of international public diplomacy. And I think with these kind of ships trying to break the siege of Gaza is going to make its presence felt all over the world in the long run, though there may not be any short-term, any gain on the ground, but certainly it is going to have an effect. And my fear has always been that there would be certainly a violent reaction in Europe against the Jewish community, more particularly the Zionist network.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.